Ladies and gentlemen, stop what you're doing because Washington, D.C. just got hit with a political shockwave nobody was prepared for. So late last night, behind closed doors, President Donald J. Trump issued the order that could change the balance of power in America forever. I'm talking about the nuclear option, the final move, the command that sends Democrats into full-blown panic mode. And what I mean by that is end the filibuster. In fact, at the exact same moment, New York City, the stronghold of the far left, is quietly bracing for something that insiders are calling federal intervention level pressure. We're talking National Guard conversations. We're talking about ICE escalation. We're talking a mayor-elect already melting down after a very tense Oval Office meeting at the White House that his own base says should have never happened. DC is exploding, NYC is panicking, and the America First agenda just went from blocked to detonate. Buckle up, folks, because tonight's breakdown, this is going to change everything for you. Hit the like button and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, here's where the story turns nuclear, because while the media was obsessing over meaningless headlines, President Trump was inside a sealed-off Senate conference room, issuing what insiders are now calling the most decisive command of his second term. Behind closed doors, with every major GOP Senate figure present, Trump didn't hint. He didn't suggest. He ordered them to prepare for full filibuster abolition. No procedural games, no delays. The message was crystal clear. End the gridlock, fulfill the America First mandate, and do it now. And the second that directive leaked, Capitol Hill went into cardiac arrest. And so Trump didn't issue this order out of thin air. He's doing it because Washington has spent months weaponizing the filibuster to sabotage his agenda. Shut down battles, manufactured obstruction, America First bills piled up like planes stacked over LaGuardia Airport. I mean, look. Trump, he told his team that the filibuster has become the Democrats' last shield, the final wall protecting a system voters rejected in 2024. Meanwhile, Democrats are already screaming dictator and authoritarian takeover, proving exactly why President Trump says the old rules must die. The base, they're cheering because they're done watching progress stalled by Senate antics. And the moment word leaked that Trump gave the order, Senate Democrats absolutely detonated. I mean, Schumer, Warren, Murphy, one after another, rushed to the camera screaming that eliminating the filibuster would destroy democracy, the same talking point that they recycle every time that their power is threatened. Now, some even invoked authoritarianism and fascism, conveniently forgetting that they've used those exact same arguments when Trump enforced border laws in his first term. And when Democrats were melting down, Republican senators were split. America First fighters celebrating, old guard moderates shaking in fear because, I mean, look, they're creating the exact chaos that Trump anticipated when he dropped the kill shot. Now, when one person fixes their Medicare plan, the whole family feels it. Less worry, less stress, more freedom. This is why I partner with Chapter. They help you fix your Medicare coverage, but the ripple effect changes everything. One of our viewers said, "My kids thank me for calling Chapter." That's crazy. Even the kids felt it. So let me ask you this. Who will your call help? Now, most people already made their call at the phone number down below, 909-563-8279, or by visiting askchapter.org/Ron. And we got a message from M. Burns, 1679. She says, "Hey, Ron, I called Chapter on Sunday. 5-minute wait. Scott was great. Saved me money. I love it." But here's the part that really kind of makes this entire meltdown laughable. Democrats already tried to abolish the filibuster themselves back in 2022. Biden, Schumer, and their entire caucus demanded it to ram through federalized voting laws. The only reason it didn't happen? Two Democrats, Sinema and Manchin, refused it. And what did their own party do? They primaried them, smeared them, and then tried replacing them with more radical candidates. So today's outrage, it's not about protecting democracy. It's about Democrats furious that Trump is now using their playbook, only this time it might actually work. So while Democrats were spiraling, the pressure cooker inside the Republican Party began to explode. Senate offices reported a flood of calls and emails the moment Trump's directive leaked. America First voters demanded action and warning that any GOP senators who protects the filibuster is protecting Democratic obstruction. Donors joined in, privately telling hesitant Republicans to fall in line or get replaced. The MAGA wing is ecstatic, shouting that this is what we voted for. Meanwhile, establishment Republicans scramble, terrified of crossing the base, but equally terrified of crossing Trump. This is a political chess match, and Trump is the only one playing to win. But the shockwaves didn't end in Washington, because at the same time Trump was ordering Republicans Republicans to prepare the filibuster kill shot, he was delivering a very different message inside the Oval Office to New York City's mayor-elect, Zoran Mamdani. Now, this was no friendly meet and greet at all. This was tense. Mamdani, he is a man who was repeatedly called Trump a fascist, sat across from the president of the United States as Trump pushed back, joked, and made it clear that he expects NYC to cooperate on public safety and immigration enforcement. And judging by Mamdani's shaken post-meeting interviews, I would just say that the message landed with nuclear force. But here's where the entire NYC storyline went from tense to downright explosive. You see, after the Oval Office meeting in the White House, a reporter asked Mamdani point blank if President Trump agreed not to deploy the National Guard into New York. And of course, Mamdani's answer stunned everyone. He did not rule it out. That single sentence sent shockwaves through political circles nationwide. Suddenly, every outlet from the conservative commentators to mainstream news analysts on NBC, CNN, ABC, they began asking the same question. Is NYC under federal watch? Would Trump step in if the city refuses to enforce immigration law? The progressive base erupted instantly, furious that Mamdani didn't reject federal authority outright. And just as the far left was melting down, ICE quietly dropped a bombshell of its own. Agents will be stepping up enforcement operations inside New York City. I don't think that this was a coincidence at all. In fact, sanctuary city leaders panicked. Progressive activists called it intimidation, but the Trump administration framed it as one thing only: restoring federal law in a city that has openly defied it. ICE officials emphasized that they're operating fully within their mandate. Timing couldn't be more symbolic. Right as Mamdani's base accuses him of selling out, federal immigration authorities are preparing their most assertive posture in years. And this right here, my friends, is where New York's political left absolutely imploded. You see, the same activists who spent years praising Mamdani as the future of progressive politics instantly turned on him. Socialist groups posted furious statements accusing him of legitimizing fascism by even stepping foot in Trump's Oval Office at the White House. Others are saying that he betrayed the movement by failing to denounce the National Guard question. Now, online, his own supporters savaged him for refusing to stand firm on sanctuary city ideology. A full-blown progressive civil war erupted, fracturing the very coalition that Mamdani relied on to win. And Trump, he didn't even need to say a word. In fact, with the chaos that's boiling inside New York's political left, analysts began discussing what would actually trigger federal intervention. Not as a prediction, but more as a legitimate political analysis. Now, commentators laid out the scenarios. If NYC continues mass non-enforcement of federal immigration law, if a public safety crisis escalates, or if the ongoing migrant surge overwhelms city systems, federal involvement could become a national conversation. Now, nobody's saying that it will happen, but everyone kind of sees why the question is back on the table. And Mamdani's own refusal to rule anything out, this has only intensified that speculation. But while the filibuster battle and the NYC confrontation were exploding in real time, President Trump, he made something else unmistakably clear. Election integrity is now the top priority of his second term. In a series of Truth Social posts, Trump said America must focus all of our energy and might on securing elections. So this means national voter ID, standardized registration rules, and closing every loophole Democrats have used to challenge outcomes for years. Now, for Trump, this is not a side issue. This is the cornerstone of restoring confidence in the republic. And so here's the part that the mainstream media conveniently ignores. Conservative research overwhelmingly supports Trump's position. I mean, the Heritage Foundation, among many others, has repeatedly shown that voter IDs does not suppress the turnout. In fact, many states with strict ID requirements have seen participation increase. Meanwhile, voter fraud vulnerability shrink with national standards replace the current patchwork of inconsistent rules. So these studies are now fueling GOP arguments on Capitol Hill, strengthening the case that national voter ID isn't just good politics, it is a proven safeguard that modernizes the entire election system. And so, as Trump and conservative groups push national voter IDs, Democrats are already spiraling into panic. Their leaders immediately dusted off the same arguments that they've used for years, calling voter ID discriminatory, racist, and a threat to democracy. But this time their fear has a different tone. They're warning that national voter ID could lock them out of power for a generation. Translation, guys, they already know a clean, secure, uniform election system eliminates the chaos and the loopholes that they have relied on for close races. And so with the filibuster on the chopping block, Their panic is starting to sound more like desperation. Now, here's the real political earthquake. If the filibuster dies, national voter ID instantly becomes legislatively achievable. Now, think about this. Instead of needing 60 votes, a threshold Democrats have used to block every election integrity bill for like 2 decades, Republicans would only need 51 votes. So this would mean voter ID, standardized registration rules, and every ballot security reform could pass with a simple GOP majority. This is why Trump's order sent DC into a frenzy, because for the first time in modern history, election integrity legislation is no longer theoretical. It's actually within reach, and Democrats know it. And so this is the moment that the left truly fears, because once the filibuster is gone, President Trump, he can move an entire America First supermajority agenda straight through the Senate at lightning speed. National voter ID would pass immediately. Immigration enforcement would be overhauled. Sanctuary cities could face federal penalties. A new national crime bill could restore law and order. Border security expansions, education reforms, deep regulatory cuts, all of it becomes possible with 51 votes. This is the nightmare scenario that Democrats warned about, and it's the exact future that President Trump's base has demanded for years. Now, of course, Democrats aren't just panicking. They're rolling out their most dramatic messaging yet. Progressive strategists, they're already screaming that eliminating the filibuster, securing elections, and cracking down on sanctuary cities is the blueprint of a one-party state. Really? The blueprint for a one-party state? Is anybody else buying that? I mean, they claim Trump is consolidating permanent power, even though these same Democrats tried to nuke the filibuster themselves in 2022. I mean, their rhetoric is escalating because they already know what's at stake. If Trump succeeds, the structural advantages and procedural shields that they've relied on for decades could vanish overnight. But while Democrats paint this as the end of democracy, Trump supporters see it as the first time in decades that Washington is actually being forced to play by the same rules as everyone else. To them, this isn't authoritarianism. This is accountability. In fact, you're saying if NYC refuses to enforce federal law, then yes, the National Guard should step in. They're saying every civilized country on earth uses voter ID. Why shouldn't we? And they're actually saying if the filibuster is only used to block America First, then it's time for it to go anyway. Now, for millions of Americans, Trump isn't breaking norms. He's just restoring fairness. And so this is where President Trump now finds himself, fighting a two-front political war, one in the Senate and one on the streets of New York City. In Washington, he's demanding Republicans finally deliver the agenda that voters chose him to enact. In NYC, he's confronting a mayor-elect Mamdani whose own base is collapsing beneath him. 2 battles, 2 pressure points, and both converging at the exact same moment. This is why the political establishment is terrified. Trump isn't focused on just one fight. He's executing a coordinated push that could reshape both federal power and America's largest city simultaneously. But here's the wildest twist of all of this, okay? So while Trump is pushing forward on both fronts, the far left is collapsing under its own contradictions. In New York, progressives are savaging Mamdani for not denouncing Trump loudly enough. In Washington, Senate progressives are demanding scorched earth resistance, even as moderates warn that doing so will only accelerate Trump's justification for killing the filibuster. I mean, it's a political civil war happening right now. Activists are turning on leaders, leaders are turning on staff, and everyone is basically terrified that Trump may be minutes away from locking in a generational power shift. The left isn't just panicking, they're cannibalizing themselves. And so now we reach this ultimate question here. This is the one that every strategist in Washington awake tonight is asking. What happens if Republicans obey Trump's order? If Senate GOP members fall in line, the America First agenda becomes unstoppable. Voter ID passes, immigration enforcement expands, sanctuary cities face federal consequences, and NYC remains under federal scrutiny as long as it defies national law. But if Republicans hesitate, well, if they stall, then their own voters may revolt, and Trump could unleash the full force of his political influence to replace them. Either way, this story isn't ending. It is only the beginning. Hit the like button, share this video. We'll see you next time.